Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman. Now I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sitdown. So it's Friday night, and there were three movies on my to-do list this weekend with the opening movies. We did Girl in the Spider's Web last night. Planning to try and go see The Grinch tomorrow. And that leaves a third movie to drop right smack dab in the middle on Friday night, on a cold, rainy Friday night out here in Jersey. And, it was a good night to go to the movies, and it was a good movie to go see, man. Every once in a while, you want to go have, some fun in the movies, and this movie was a load of fun, a ton of thrills, a few scares. It was a really nice mixture of an action, a really nice mixture of a lot of different things that play overall to make a really fun B movie that is really easy to enjoy in the theater, especially when the theater is fairly crowded. It had a decent sized theater considering it was in the IMAX theater at the theater that I was at tonight, which is one of the bigger theaters. And I'd say the entire middle section of the movie theater was filled out, which is awesome. And the crowd had a good time during the movie, which always helps. So pull up a chair, man, take a seat. I just got done watching Overlord, the latest production from J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot. When this movie was first announced, and it was announced that it was going to be a World War II, Nazi thriller, horror thriller, a lot of people started to wonder if this was a secret Cloverfield movie. And once the first trailer came out, there were still some people going oh, maybe it could be. I thought it was pretty obvious that it was never going to be tied to Cloverfield. And I'm glad it's not, because it's its own movie, and it's a really good standalone movie that opens the door for another universe for JJ to kind of carve a niche out in. The way the movie ends, it kind of hints at there's more to do than what we just did in this movie. So it functions very well as a standalone flick. But there is definitely a fun universe that you could play with here. And that's because, we're taking this concept of this, I believe, is right on the eve of D-Day. The American troops have to take out this tower that's, in a Nazi stronghold in France. And it's kind of that story, but when we get in on the mission, we come to find out, that there's a lot of Nazi experiments. And there were always, rumors and, different, myth or stories. The Nazis were trying to create a superhuman race, or trying to figure out ways to lengthen life for all these crazy experiments. And you take that concept and make that crazy experiment the life everlasting juice. You inject people with this serum and they essentially turn into zombies. You can bring the dead back to life, and then they function very much like zombies outside of the fact that they don't try to eat brains. But you can shoot them, you can try to kill them, they keep coming back. And that produces a lot of fun in this movie, but because, of the way it's set up, just because you take, if you're able to take out one of these, doesn't mean that there couldn't be other laboratories with secret experiments going on that you could play around with in this world. And that's really exciting because this movie was a lot of fun. And you got to give a lot of credit to director Julius Avery and writers Billy Ray and Mark L. Smith, who produced a really solid screenplay. Like I said, the movie and the story, it's fun, it's inventive. It ties in a bunch of different things that allowed you to create an original story that's a good time. But Julius Avery, who I think has only done really one feature film prior to this, that I wasn't familiar with, and then mostly shorts when I kind of skimmed his IMDb page. So for a fairly unknown, director, Julius Avery came in, man, and delivered big time. Like I said, I think he handles this movie really, really well in the sense that, it's fun, and he builds it really nicely. It starts with a huge bang at the beginning, man. You kind of just get thrown into the movie, and it's so much fun, and it's absolutely wild and insane, and sets the tone for what the movie ultimately will be. But then from that, we kind of drop down and kind of, everything settles a little bit. Kind of like a good beer, right? Like, when you have a good heavy beer, you gotta let it settle for a minute. And while it's settling, yeah, it's a little bit slower and calmer, than the initial pour. But you're going to get something really good after it settles. And that's exactly what happens here, man. We get to about the halfway point, and something happens with Ian DeCasteker's character, Chase. And from that moment on, the movie just like goes from like a big peak spike to kind of down here to just build, another big peak spike right at the end. And it's all well-deserved and really earned. And Julius Avery does a really good job of carrying the movie that way and pacing it so that you're able to kind of come in and out, but you're never bored. You're always, something's always going on. And the action builds in the same way, man. These kind of small tidbits that lead to a really nice finale set piece. That, again, is a lot of fun. And he does some really nice work with the camera. There's some really nice shots in this movie. But the other thing, man, that Avery does really, really well is he gets you to jump out of your seat multiple times. Not just like jump, and maybe it was because I was in an IMAX theater, so you got the volume jacked all the way up, but I've seen a couple horror movies now in Dolby theaters, and it was same instances, and I've had a lot of jumps like recently, Halloween for sure, but the jumps that I got tonight were like heart into my throat, whole body like convulsion jumps. Every single time, and a lot of the time, it's coming. You're just like, oh, it's coming. Oh, jeez. And it was just so well executed. It's the way that it's built, it's the way that it's shot, it's the way the score delivers underneath what's happening. He really delivers in the pop scare area, and really crafts really solid pop scares that really get you every single time. And that's really important anytime you're doing a horror movie, especially one that involves, Nazi zombies. And a lot of that you got to give credits to the writers, Billy Ray and Mark L. Smith, because while Avery's able to take the story to the places that it needs to go to function and work really well as a movie, the script really does do a good job of kind of reinventing and giving a fresh perspective to any kind of World War II type movie, but even more in particular to zombie. Like a zombie Nazi movie, because we already have precedent for this, and actually one of my favorite horror zombie movies is Dead Snow, an international film that specifically features zombie Nazis, and it's a really solid B movie. And what Avery does here with the script that Ray and Smith provide is the combination of the three elevate the kind of concept of zombie Nazis and take it to a place that's intense and scary, but fun and energized and action-packed. And all this stuff works really, really well. And then throw in the fact that you have a really stellar cast going to work here. Jovan Adepo, who plays our lead Boyce, we've seen him in Fences. He plays Denzel's son there. I know him from Leftovers. He shows up in the second season and third season, also in Mother. So, he's been slowly building, and he really does a good job carrying the movie. And his character arc is really solid. From the beginning where you see this kind of tense, nervous soldier that's never been thrown into war, and the way the story takes him, there's about a moment, like a little bit more than quarter of the way through, that ultimately sends the whole group on the path that they end up on, because he finally finds something that he personally needs to fight for. And once that happens, his character kind of starts to evolve and change, and does a really good job of leading the way, albeit sometimes into bad situations, but uncovers a lot of stuff, accidentally stumbles into some things, but is able to make it all work for him. And like I said, that arc just kind of, very much like the movie, the trajectory is just up. And Adepo does a really, really good job making you care and really like Boyce. Wyatt Russell, who plays kind of like the guy that's more or less the commander of the group that we're with, Ford, does a really nice job. Didn't really stand out super big for me, but delivers everything he needs to be. He's that, clearly like he's got some demons going on from whatever's happened to him previously in the war. And he does a good job of portraying that and builds up, nicely as a second, in command to a depot. As far as acting, it's the number 2. But the other big standout for me in this movie, man, is Matilda Olivier, who plays Chloe, who's a French girl who kind of aids our group of American soldiers. She is excellent, man. She same thing, kind of quiet and reserved, but the minute she has something legitimate to fight for, woo, that switch gets flipped, man, and she is badass. And just I really enjoyed, same thing, her character arc, a really nice build. And again, just enjoyed everything she was doing on screen. I really, really enjoyed her performance. This cast is just phenomenal everywhere, man. We got a couple Game of Thrones alums. Pilo Asbach, who plays Wafner. He's essentially our Overlord. And he, of course, is Euron Greyjoy in Game of Thrones, and he's wonderful in this. I mean, I love him in Thrones, so I was expecting really good things from him here as our main antagonist, and he delivers, man. He delivers a really, really hateable Nazi kind of commander, and then where his story arc goes leads to wonderful things at the end, and his character has a really fun arc that's very enjoyable and provides a constant threat throughout the entire movie. You never feel like any of our main characters are safe. There are legitimate things at stake. There are legitimate stakes just everywhere. And Asbach does a really good job of being the thing that is so threatening and scary. And then we also get to see Jacob Anderson, good old Grey Worm, who plays Dawson. We get, to see him amongst the group. And the entire group is really good, man. John Magaro, who plays Tibbet, he's kind of their sharpshooter. And he has a really nice, kind of like little side story with Chloe's little brother, Paul, who's played by Gianni Taufer. Their back and forth is so good. Taufer's really quiet in the whole movie and well reserved, but he has a couple moments where he speaks up, and when he does, they put a smile on your face, and they're really excellent. And kind of sum up, especially the last thing he does, or one of the last things he does, it really sums up how you're feeling as the audience. But his interactions with Magaro are just fantastic. Magaro's a fast talker. He's the one who cuts a lot of the tension in the movie and makes you laugh, especially as things start to elevate in the horror department. Magaro's always a nice tension cutter, and his relationship with Taffer, it is really cool, and you really enjoy it. And then you have Dominic Applewhite, who kind of ends up being, Tibbet's sidekick. And he has, an interesting story too, where he lands and pops up, or just everywhere we meet somebody brings in something interesting to the story. And then Ian DeCasticker, you're probably familiar with him from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He plays Fitz. He plays Chase, who's kind of like the journalist photographer that's with the group. And his arc leads to, your immediate kind of crazy stuff. And what he does in his one big scene is excellent, man. It's a lot of physical work, and a lot of makeup. But he really pops real well and does a really good job, I thought, delivering what he needed to deliver, considering he's the one non-army guy that's in the group. So that's what I mean, man. The cast is just excellent, and especially our main core, with the American, soldiers, and then, Chloe and Paul. And then, you throw in a wonderful antagonist. The cast really carries this movie well and just helps elevate really solid B material. And then the zombies are just dope, man. They got a cool look to them, because they're more like genetically engineered zombies. We're able to get a different take while at the same time seeing things that are very, very reminiscent. There are a couple shots in this movie that kind of reminded me of Red Snow. I was like, oh man, that's very classic zombie looks. But then we get some that are not so classic. And they kind of have a slimy texture to them. And it all kind of plays into the story, but some of them are just absolutely insane. And then there are a couple scenes, man, besides the finale. There's one in the lead up, and then the third act is just an absolute insane fun time. And some of the zombies that we run into in the third act Ooh, man, I like some things I just hadn't seen before as far as like an aggressive level. And it's really, really enjoyable. And like I said, continually makes you feel like nobody is safe. And I thought that Avery and Ray and Smith do a really good job, both in the director's chair and in the writing, to deliver a script and a story and a movie that can carry and have a progressive arc that's constantly going up. And just like give real, like legit, scares, but also real legitimate stakes. Like things are at stake and nobody is safe in this movie. And I loved all of that stuff. So ultimately, man, I came out of Overlord going, yes, that's a win. And you know what? If you're going to build me a universe, something that they hint at the end, right? Like the story's not done. They kind of hint at the fact that the story's not done. And if you start building me a universe, J.J. Abrams, where we lead to seeing someone killing a zombie version of Hitler, take my money. There's so many fun things to do within that story. That I'm in, man. You could sign me up if you wanted to keep doing more of these. And if you don't, completely satisfied with what I got. Clearly, because I have been blabbing like a crazy person. So I'm going to shut up, man, so that you guys can let me know what you're thinking. Hit those comments down below. Are you excited about Overlord? Did you think that it was going to be tied into Cloverfield? Were you disappointed when you realized that it wasn't? If you saw the movie, how'd you like it? Did it work as a standalone film? Could you be excited about more of these? If that happened, what you liked or didn't like, about the movie, let me know all that down below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe and little bell so you get alerts every time I make a new video. The Seaman Cinema Sit Down. I'm the Seaman, and I'm signing off. Hey, you like to see man's videos? Well, why don't you click on this one and hit that subscribe button there? Yeah.